So, how in the world do we get from traditional manhood, also called toxic masculinity by the American Psychological Association, all the way to chronic health issues, mental health issues, and even death? Well, let's talk about that. First, traditional manhood is largely reinforced either inside the home and or outside the home by a process called policing. This is basically where social groups that we affiliate with reinforce us for doing the traditional manhood stuff growing up and as grown men, and then applies pressure or criticism, even threat of rejection when we do things outside of traditional manhood, like being more emotionally vulnerable, present, or sharing with others, or wanting to do more nurturing aspects of life. Now, the more that we are reinforced for doing those traditional manhood markers, as we talked about in the last video, and the more those take us away from our own true, authentic self, the more we experience what is called gender identity conflict. This is basically where we're told that as a human being, how we identify, right, as Logan, how I identify, is not good enough for also being a man. And inherently in that space, we run into conflict. We are not allowed to access resources, either outside the home, sometimes even inside the home, if we are to present with our full true self that goes against those traditional manhood indicators. Over time, what happens is we develop a collection of defense mechanisms to keep ourselves safe from having those resources restricted or taken away from us, even if that involves ignoring our own fears and insecurities and pain. Over time, those defense mechanisms come into a type of persona or mask that's also called ego, right? The roles that we play. Think about that kind of thing. And over time, we learn to be in such conflict with who we are fundamentally as a human being, as opposed to what we feel like we need to be like as a man to be treated with respect and dignity, that we run into so much defense mechanisms that keep us from being in a natural state of balanced human health and happiness, that we have trouble asking for help, that we have trouble expressing pain to loved ones and get isolated, that we don't trust other people to be vulnerable with them, that we insist on being in control of our feeling states all the time. That starts to sound like addiction. That starts to sound like compulsively engaging in high-risk behavior, even violence to be in control. And what we start seeing is how these deaths of despair start to happen. Deaths of despair is a group of fatalities that was named by the Center of Disease Control when they realized that the life expectancy of men has gone down in the last 10 years. So whether this is about drug use and overdosing, whether this is about alcohol, toxicity and poisoning, even suicide, these collection of drug-related, high-risk behavior-related, and suicide-related deaths, all that can be seen as symptoms of traditional manhood and these defense mechanisms, ego states, gone awry, kind of eating our own tail. We can see how dangerous all of this gets, is over time we're taught to believe through policing, and then we even start policing ourselves so that we can't access a full range of our humanity. We get stuck, we get isolated, we get addicted, and we die.